Welcome to the Develop Yourself podcast, where we teach you everything you need to land your first job as a software developer by learning to develop yourself, your skills, your network, and more. I'm Brian, your host. Today on the Develop Yourself podcast, I got Jacob, a former mentee at Parsity, kind of a current mentee. No one ever is like a former anything at Parsity. Once you're in, you're just in. We talk here and there. Jacob just got hired, and I want to talk to him about a couple of things today, mostly about the getting hired process, because he has a very interesting way he approached it, but also about his background getting into coding and what it's like now that how far along are you on the job now?
I just hit a month earlier this week.
Whoa. Okay. That's a pretty pivotal chunk of time. That's like those first 30 days can be really stressful. They can be really like enthusiastic. It's a lot of emotional stuff going on as far and technical stuff going on at that time. Well, thanks for being on the show today. I really appreciate you taking time in between doing your first 30 days to come on and talk to us about this.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really grateful to be on a platform like this with so many other great speakers that have been on here before. And just to have the opportunity to share my experience, I think is just going to be super valuable for people who are going through the same kind of thing.
Yeah. And it's funny because before we hit record, you were saying, I'd like to share a little bit about my past and how I kind of got into coding. And I think that's really important because oftentimes people will put barriers around themselves before the world really ever does. We say, oh, I'm not smart enough to code, or, I didn't grow up with computers, or I don't know math, whatever. What is your background for people that don't know?
So that's like kind of how I started out as well. I was really into tech growing up, but not in terms of building apps and things like that. I just really liked how software worked on a user level. So I was always interested in the new iPhone, the things like that it could do. And I was like, I don't know how this works, but it's really cool. But I never got into coding, even though my dad he learned to code when he was in college. My grandpa before him actually learned to code. He was using those floppy disks back in the day when they had those giant rooms that were a computer.
Yeah.
He was like on the ground floor of the internet. So
awesome.
I have it in my family history, but never had an interest because mainly I thought that you had to be highly skilled with math, and math wasn't my taste. It wasn't something I was good at. And so I stayed away from coding. I thought it was more than just problem solving. I thought it was a lot of math required. And so I actually went down the medical field, and I went to college to be I was doing pre-med to be a doctor. That's the route that I wanted to take initially because I just love learning about the human body and things like that. But I was also a victim, you could say, of the college COVID era. And the beginning of my junior year, they shut us down and went full remote. And this was at the time that I was starting to get my, high honors type courses for like taking the MCAT and things like that. And so my grade tanked a little. I was so far into the degree, I didn't want to switch to anything. So I went ahead and finished it, and I did get my degree. But I will say that did not help me get the job that I am working right now. So I didn't even mention it to him initially. So it was completely irrelevant, but I did get my degree. But at the same time, during COVID, I kind of realized that it wasn't the path that I wanted to choose. Just certain things made me kind of realize that I wanted to take a different direction. I also got married and had my first son. He's going to be 2 pretty soon. Wow. And so I'm a young husband and young father as well. Yeah. But I will say, when I got my degree, I was looking at what I could do with that. And it was just, I kind of felt like I was settling for something. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this. And I started looking around, what is something that I can get into that doesn't require me to go back to college and doesn't require me to spend years on years to learn myself or something like that. And I came across, coding boot camps, and I actually heard your podcast, and that's what got me interested into learning what code is and things like that. And so I give a lot of credit to this podcast and Aaron for starting it up, and you taking it over. I think that's what really drew me in. And I actually was doing Amazon delivery, and I just had hours to kill where I was listening to podcasts. So I found yours, started to listen. I just binge listened to it. I've probably listened to all the episodes.
Dude, I remember we were talking about that, I think, on the phone at one point. And I was like, it's surreal when I hear people say that, but that's a pretty I forgot about the fact that you were an Amazon delivery. That's a crazy story.
Like
Yeah. So
pre-med, Amazon delivery truck driver, and now software engineer.
yeah, I mean, I had to pay the bills, so I
Yeah.
was working all day doing that,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, I cannot be doing this anymore. And so I started getting into coding and learning the podcast and things like that, like learning about what code is, what a software engineer does.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I signed up for a different boot camp because I hadn't heard about Parsity. And then I started hearing about the boot camp horrors and
Oh
kind of
yeah.
how they have that cookie cutter design.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I started to instantly get like a buyer's remorse, even though I hadn't started yet. So
Mm-hmm.
I started looking around. I'm like, should I go through with this? And I ended up canceling that boot camp and switching over to Parsity. And I still had no experience. And then I found out that you guys had an entrance exam. And I'm like, well, I got to learn how to code a little so I can get in. And so I did Dev 30. I
Yep.
learned the bare bones of coding.
Mm-hmm.
Did not start posting on LinkedIn at all. I kind of thought that was more of a self-motivator, kind of accountability sort
Mm-hmm.
of aspect. Didn't realize there was a lot more to it than that. And I failed the Parsity interview, and that totally like rocked me because I was like, okay, maybe I shouldn't do this.
Oh
But
man.
then I talked to you and Jamie, and you guys were like, well, I think you're going to be a great fit. So we're going to let you in anyways. And I was like shocked. I'm like, okay, I got to take advantage of this opportunity. And so I was working while doing coding, while taking care of my son and holding it down while my wife was working on certain days,
Oh my
and
God.
just real short. I mean, so you know the I guess you don't call it a boot camp as much anymore,
Yeah,
but
right. Yeah.
just for the sake of the term, like, you know, the boot camp was supposed to be about 6 months, but I loved that it was fully asynchronous, and so you could do it on your own time. That was
Mm-hmm.
perfect for me. And just being able to, I think the biggest thing was having people like you to reach out to, like the mentors, whenever you get stuck on something, because that's what really sold me on it
Yeah,
rather
for
than
sure.
learning myself. Just having
Yep.
that person to go to, especially when you have questions about things that you're just so stuck. You've been on it for a day or two and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know what's wrong with this. And then you look at it for 5 minutes and you're like, oh, I see it
Like,
right
oh, that
here.
thing.
And
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. So I give a lot of credit to you, and the way that you guys had the have Parsity set up is just a really great environment for me to learn.
I appreciate that so much. Jeez. I mean, that's
I wasn't
always
paid to
really
say
wonderful
that
to
too.
hear.
I'll
I know,
put
right?
that
I was
out there.
like, I need to send you a box of donuts later. After the show.
I was gonna send you one out of habit.
Oh, but dude, that's yeah, I mean, one, you hit on so many like interesting points there. Like that we tend to get a lot of young fathers in general in Parsity. It's pretty interesting actually. Not even so young fathers, like early fathers, like first time parents, because they realize like the boot camp model is probably not going to fit for them, most of them, but also like the time investment. Like you can self-learn anything. You can self-teach yourself how to code for sure. It's just how long do you want to take? Because I've met people that take 3 years, 4 years. And to me, that's not that long, but the reality is 99% of people can't maintain that kind of structure for 4 years. That's why people go to college or they go to these coding boot camps, whatever. But besides Parsley, I'm much more interested to talk about the part of like how you got hired, because you've been really prolific in my opinion on LinkedIn. I point to you as like an example for other people. I'm like, oh, if you see what Jacob's posting, and I talk a lot about what you've done because I think it's really cool. What led you to post on LinkedIn, and can you tell us a little bit of the story, like how you got into this job from LinkedIn?
Yeah, so I'll admit at the beginning I wasn't posting on LinkedIn at all.
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't see the value in it. I thought it was more to just kind of like start connecting with other engineers and get to know people. And
Yeah.
I saw value in that, but it wasn't really taking my time at the moment. Then I started listening to your podcast talking about how putting yourself out there, showing your work is kind of like putting your resume out there for other people to see almost.
Mm-hmm.
And then I listened to the programming podcast with Danny Thompson and
Yeah.
Leon Noel. They're great as
They're
well.
awesome. Yeah.
And they talk about the same exact thing. And I'm like, okay, all these guys are like well seasoned engineers, and they're all saying the same thing. I got to start like forcing myself to do this.
Right.
And I was just starting the final project for building my own app sort of thing, full
Mm-hmm.
stack, start to finish. And I'm like, I'm just gonna like talk about everything I learned on the way here and just see if anyone's interested. And sure enough, people really started gravitating towards it. And I didn't really think it was going to be much to talk about, but you start running into a problem here and you get through
Exactly.
authentication
Yep.
and I'm trying to get Google OAuth to work, and someone else is like, dude, I had the worst time with that, but like once you get
Mm-hmm.
it up, it's like it's the best. And so you just start making conversations with people, and I'll admit I haven't posted on LinkedIn in a little while because I've just been like so
That's how it
snowed with the
goes,
amount of work I've
for
had.
sure.
But I still get people that go through my old posts and, they'll like it or people want to connect to me. And so I think it's still paying dividends. But I will say that I would not have had this job opportunity if it wasn't for posting on LinkedIn. 100%. I'll say it loud and clear right here. I didn't send one application out. I didn't have one interview at all. And I say this because I am the extreme outlier.
Yes.
I
Some ways, yes.
totally thought in my head, this is going to be a 6-month trial and error, 99 no's for one yes. And it was just going to be a grind. And I was ready for it. And then I get this DM from this CEO, and he's like, "Hey, my team's hiring in the LA area, which is where I live, for software engineers. Are you interested? Would you like to schedule a call with me?" And I'm like looking at this like,
Hell
"Is
yeah,
this a
dude.
scam?"
Yeah,
Yeah, but
right.
I was like on edge at first. I'm like, "Is this a scam?" Because I don't understand why the CEO's reaching out to me, and like I just didn't see it coming out of nowhere. It was out of left field. So I did a little research on the company and on the CEO. He's actually really smart, really amazing guy. And the company it's a startup, but it's been around for 5 years. They've got a core team, so it's not a super volatile startup. And
Yeah.
so it kind of looked like the right fit. And the product is really cool too, because it is basically a hybrid cloud platform, which allows you to use different cloud services. You think of like AWS, Microsoft Azure, GCP. You can use any of those and you basically pay like a very minimal amount. It's super customizable and it's super easy to use. And so I scheduled a call with him. I'm like, let me just talk to the guy. And we Zoomed and we hit it off right away. And it was not like a formal interview. He
Yeah.
kind of just got straight to it. It was like, I see you built this app on and you were sharing on LinkedIn, and I can see you've got the skills and you're willing to, work hard to learn certain things. You're a
Yeah.
go-getter. And he's like, I'm actually not really looking for college students because they come across a little entitled. They put in the
Wow.
effort,
Okay.
and they kind of, because from what I've heard from others is not everyone, but sometimes a college student will put 4 years of learning in, but they don't really know how to code a lot yet. And then they get to the company and they're like, all right, I did my 4 years. Like, it's time to sit back and relax because I put in the work already. And a lot of companies aren't a fan of that. They like the self-taught type people that are like, I may not know everything right now. I don't have a degree to back that up, but I'm willing to put in the effort to learn it all. And that's kind of how I pitched myself. And it just came across really well. And I'll say he on the first meeting we had, he just jumped straight into it. He's like, "So if we brought you on the team, like, how much would you want to be making?" And I'm like,
Damn.
"Oh." I was like, "Where?" I was just like,
I
quick
don't know,
thinking in my
man.
head.
Let me get my calculator.
I just gave him like such a big ballpark, and I was like, maybe we can rediscuss this later. And as soon as I got off the call, I ran straight to you. I'm like, dude, I don't even know what to ask for. I'm like, what is reasonable? What is out of
Oh
it?
man, I
I was
know.
just
That's a tough
crazy.
one.
That was quite the call I had.
Dude, I didn't know all these details. I'm so glad we're talking about this. That is awesome. Hey, I hope you're enjoying this episode. Now, you know that I own an anti-boot camp with my buddy Zubin, an ex-Google software engineer. If you're interested in not just learning how to code, and you know it's going to take more than 3 months, and you're serious about making a transition into a career in software, and you want to work with people that have done it before and are currently working in senior plus levels, join me and Zubin at parsity.io/inner-circle. You can learn all about our philosophy, how we approach learning how to code and switching careers in a much different way, and how we have so much gosh dang success. If you're interested in being one of the few people that works with us this year, go and apply at parsity.io/inner-circle. And now back to the episode. And the other thing about your posts were like, as much as you posted about like a lot of technical stuff, you also had a healthy mix of like very non-technical stuff. That was interesting to me too.
I found that the more I got into coding, the more I could see it in other aspects of life, whether it's like working out in the gym, which I relate to a lot when you have posts like that, or just working on cars and like learning how things work on a component level.
Yep.
It's like it's almost the same. And I realized that coding is really like an amazing skill to have that translates into so many other aspects. And so I think I kind of wanted to talk about that as well, that it's not just about the code. Sometimes it's about things that are like coding and they're outside of that world.
I think that's what made like me take a lot more like looks at your posts. Like your posts are just showing up in my feed naturally. Like sometimes people varsity post and I don't really see what they post until I have to like actually dig for them. But you were popping up a lot. And I remember you had some things about like off-roading, for example. You were writing about that, I believe. And like, you know, more it was pictures and things like things that I normally don't post on my own. But I'm like, this is cool. Like this is, let's be honest, LinkedIn is social media, right?
Yeah,
Like, so
for
the more
sure.
you can kind of like show who you are, the more trust I think you also gain. Like, I think you taught me a lot with that actually, to be like, yeah, like this is not the dry platform it used to be anymore. Like, I think that we do need to treat it a bit more like social media in order to create those connections. Because if I'm not mistaken, didn't the person also like find some sort of connection with you from your posts that were non-technical? Like, didn't you have some sort of shared interest or something like that?
Yeah, so I mean, he mostly saw that I had built the app that I built for kind of my
Okay.
credibility, but he had initially said too, I noticed that you're a software engineer based out of Los Angeles. And
Mm.
he actually lives, I kid you not, like 20 minutes down the road from me. And
Oh,
that was one
nice.
reason why he was so interested in me, is because he was looking for someone local to him. And so I think kind of putting myself out there, I had mentioned in one post that I had posted of my kid that I did live in the LA area, and I think
Yeah.
that was probably where he saw that. But yeah, I totally think that having those kinds of posts really show yourself as not just this like square, like I'm just here for work type of
Yeah.
person. And I think there's a level of professionalism on LinkedIn, which is good.
Yes.
But I think you have to balance that with like, we're all people here. We still like to see, the things that are going on in your life. And I think I got a lot of that from following other people like you, like Brooke Sweetar,
Mm-hmm.
like Aaron, the guy who started the boot camp.
Yep.
I mean, they all post things outside of just
That's
coding,
right.
and they're the ones that I'm the most interested in usually, which is really cool.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great point. Like we're humans, like, right? And you got to pass the vibe check. Like this is a
Right.
thing, especially at startups, even if it's a bigger startup, even at a really big company. At some level, you got to pass that vibe check. And you did, obviously, for this case. Like if you had come across weird or whatever, but he probably felt like, okay, I already know a lot about you. It's like your resume. Like I'm seeing now, for me personally, I'm really not giving my resume out at all anymore either. Like I'm getting hit up from people that follow me either on LinkedIn or maybe you read an article of mine, like kind of random ways people are coming into my like circle now for job opportunities. But it's certainly not through me sending out my resume anymore. That I feel like those days are kind of behind us. If I'm being honest, I feel like the resume is almost like a formality at this point. You know what I mean? So if this
Yeah.
guy's already offering you the job, like through the first call, like what was your interview like? Was there like a formal interview? Like, hey, let's code in front of me.
No, so there was no interview whatsoever, and
Oh
that's
man, that's
why I
funny.
think this is such an outlier type of event for me. But it was also really cool because I think he has been in the game long enough that he just saw kind of through the fluff, and he could
Hmm.
see deep down like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. He's willing to learn things. And because I hadn't heard about the company until we met, and I was about to start deploying my app that I had
Hmm.
just finished, and he said, "I want you to deploy it on using our service." And I knew that that wasn't a very straightforward thing.
Hmm.
Cloud deployment is, I've learned very quickly that it is not a straightforward thing at all.
No, it is not.
And so he told me to deploy the app using their service, and so I had to do that, and to show him that I knew how to do that, and then also create a video showing how I did that, kind of as like a test run to show that I
Oh, so
could
that is a
explain.
interview essentially. Okay.
I guess so. I,
Yeah.
I I would say it was more like take home assignments.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like I wasn't really doing anything under the gun. It was like, hey, when you get a chance, like do this, and we'll meet up when you're done with that.
Hmm.
So I mean, I guess you could say it was a bit of a filtering process. I mean, if I had bombed those, he definitely
I'm
wouldn't
sure you're
have
probably like,
given me the thumbs
see ya.
up. Yeah. But
Exactly.
there was definitely no like rounds of interview. I wasn't competing with anyone because I think he was just reaching out to people in the area who had
Hmm.
the I guess you could say the skills that I had, and it just happened to work out perfectly that way. I think it was a gift from God. He just put it right in my lap, and I really have nothing else to say about it.
I mean, that's an amazing story. But it's funny because you said you feel like this is like an outlier, and in many ways it is. But do you know how many times I've been hired for like senior roles with zero technical interview? It's
I
been three
believe it.
times,
Yeah,
three separate times it's happened to me, and I've been a little shocked,
really.
honestly. Like some of them, I was like, you're really trusting my LinkedIn profile's up to date, because you're just going off vibes and whatever LinkedIn told you. But I like your experience. I think that's actually going to be more common if it already isn't. Like I worked at a startup. I work at a startup now, but we were trying to hire for senior roles, and it was like impossible. As much as I know it's really hard on the employee side, it's also hard on the employer side. And if you're a small company, like I bet if the CEO at your company put up a post and said hiring, I bet you he probably wouldn't get that much traction, right? I bet he doesn't have a huge following, right? He's not an influencer, so he's not going to get all that traction. So he's going to have to kind of go out and look. And when he's looking,
Right.
he's probably doing the filters like, okay, who's in the area? Who knows this? He's probably just looking like many of us are just looking. And that actually is a pretty effective way to find people and just like directly target who you want, rather than just doing this big like, hey, let me pay LinkedIn $1,000 and hire a hiring manager and then hire this person and then have my whole team do hours worth of coding interviews. That's a lot of time and money. So
For sure.
yeah, it's just
And I
not
think
really
the big
cost effective.
takeaway from that is that if that's the new method to hire people, especially in these startups or smaller companies,
right?
If you're not on LinkedIn, you're not going to be found. I mean, you can't just go and hit the quick apply and hope that you get found, because that's only, 10% of, maybe less than that, of job applications.
Yep.
I heard from someone that usually if you see a job posting on LinkedIn, they're already interviewing if it just got posted, because they're that quick with their connections. And if you get that connection with someone, you're first in line for the interviews.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, I think we all have to. The market is so different now that I hear that, oh, it's a brutal market. And I really think I'm kind of leaning towards, yes, it's brutal in the way that what we used to do is completely different. Like it's so different now than what we used to do. So now you're on the job. How is it, man? Like what is your first month been like?
Man, it has been they say drinking through a fire hydrant. That's
Yeah.
not an exaggeration.
Mm-hmm.
I imagined that working with my first company would be a lot. I did not imagine that my first company would be specializing in, a SaaS product that is cloud based, and I all of a sudden have to become a cloud expert. And I did not. I mean, Parsity taught a surface level of like, hey,
Yeah, like
here's how
some
you
cloud.
deploy something on AWS.
Yeah, right.
And they're very graceful and very encouraging with me, like giving me the time to learn this kind of stuff. But I'm just looking at it and I'm like, okay, what do I start with? There's so much. I had to dive back into the basics of like things like IP addresses and like NAT gateways and
Oh
subnets and
man.
VPCs. And I mean, I could just keep going. There's just
I don't
so
know any of that
many.
stuff really, So that makes
I have
you're
to
no
know
more than
all
me at
of
this
it.
point. That's awesome.
I will say though that I think this kind of an opportunity, while it seems very intimidating on the front end, I see myself on the back end having this on my resume as a cloud platform engineer type of person. I see that being something very marketable
Oh,
compared
100%.
to maybe just like a normal SaaS company. I mean, not to say anything against those, but when you are working with something that's so new technology wise and high in demand, I just think that's a very marketable skill. So I'm really fortunate to be in this kind of a position and with such a great team. I mean, so far it's just been a great experience. Just
That's
so much work. That's all I
Oh,
can
I could
say.
imagine. I mean, even me, doing this for 10 plus years now, every time I start a new company, I feel like I always feel like I'm going to get fired. Like that's my own neuroticism a bit. Like I'm like, I'm going to get fired this time. And, I never have, but it's always part of my mind. But I remember that first job, I'll never forget. Like I walked in and I'm like, I'm in so far over my head. I don't know what the hell's going on. And now I have the confidence that I can like, okay, I'll figure it out. But, that first job, it can be a lot to handle. You seem like you're handling it pretty well, or you're putting it across a good front at least. But like,
Thanks.
do you have like did you get any like that emotional response? Because I think that's something we don't talk about enough. I mean, and it's fine if you don't, but a lot of times you'll post on LinkedIn, people's like, congratulations. And then that's it. And then they think, okay. And then they don't realize now the game has really just begun. So
Yeah.
yeah, have you been dealing with like, some of the stress of like a new career essentially?
Yeah, I'll say I feel like in terms, if you can compare it to like running a race, learning to code is like running in your own time. It's like you're building that endurance and you're
Yeah.
getting ready for the race. But when you get hired, that's when you're on the starting line and the gun goes off. It's a different feeling, and there's so much more demand and pressure on you. It can really tear you apart emotionally if you're
hmm
not ready for it. And I will say it definitely got me in certain moments where I was really nervous, like how you were saying, just from small things. Like they ask, like, "Oh, do you know what this is?" And I'm like, "No, I don't." And they're like, "Oh, you need to go back and learn that." And like the way they said, I'm like, "Oh, I
Like,
should have
oh,
known that already." And I'm like,
yeah,
"Okay, I gotta learn this like
yeah,
quick." And I guess the hard thing too is with this company, most of what I'm learning right now isn't necessarily code related. I mean, it all revolves around, using code, building an app,
hmm
deploying it, but it's much more around the deployment process.
okay,
And that is such a new field to me still
yeah,
that it definitely makes me feel like I'm the new guy and I am learning from scratch again. It's so hard.
yeah,
But I just say you take it a day at a time, and some days are better than others. And I look at it and I'm like, I've been here for a month now, and I look at where I was at when I started,
hmm
and I know light years more than I did when I started, and I can only imagine 3 months, 6 months from
a
now where
year,
I'll
right?
be.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I know because my team has the confidence in me to get there, and they're gonna keep pushing me, which is a huge part of it. If you have a team that tears you down, you're in the wrong place. It doesn't
oh yeah,
matter.
for sure.
But I will say, like, you just be patient with yourself, because there really is so much to learn out there, and you're not gonna. There's a reason why you're a junior. You're not gonna
Yes,
learn it all in the first year, and thankfully you learn a lot of it in the first year. But
yes,
I'm still on that journey where it's like, when does the learning stop? And it doesn't really, but it
no, it does
it
not.
just feels like it's infinite learning right now.
Sometimes like I thought like I'm like, oh, I can't wait 10 years I'm to be like an expert. And now I feel like, geez, here I am. And I feel like now I'm very aware of how little I know. And I've had to make decisions like, okay, I cannot learn everything. I have to be pretty skilled in a few areas, and then areas that I'm curious about, I can go explore some more. And then I look at people with 25 years and I ask them the same question, and they often feel the same way. Like things move so fast in tech, which is both intimidating and also makes it really, really fun to do this stuff because there's always something new. You can stay in one field, you can pivot to somewhere else. Like you're in cloud, which is a really interesting place to be. And then who knows where you'll pivot from there. I mean, that's a very
Yeah.
interesting skill set to have. That's a skill set I don't really have, but beyond a surface level. So probably in your 1 month, you probably know more than me right now about like cloud in general. I know that's a really large term, I bet your knowledge is probably deeper than mine, and it certainly will be in 6 months, which is interesting, right? That's the cool thing
Yeah.
about tech, you know?
And that's one of the things that really drew me into tech is every other job I worked before, it's like you learn the initial skills, you get there, and then you kind of just keep doing the same thing over and over.
hmm
It doesn't really bring new challenges. And there are other fields out there that have this sort of trait to it, but I will say all the jobs I worked before, it's kind of the same thing over and over. And I really like that with tech. It's like I just like took a deep dive on how old the internet is. And it's crazy that we know people that are older than the internet.
Right.
And to think of how far it's come with AI coming out now and with like cloud development and things like that. It's like, okay, when I'm 10, 15 years into this career, like who knows what the landscape's going to look like. It could be so
It'll
different,
be
and that's what's really
unrecognizable.
exciting.
Yeah, it'll
Yeah,
be
and
probably
we're first in
unrecognizable.
line to learn all the really cool stuff that everyone talks about, which is pretty fun because all of my friends and family, they're asking me about AI. Which model's the best and why? And
Yeah,
is AI going to take all the jobs? And I'm like,
exactly.
the source of knowledge here, I'm like, well, from
God.
what I understand.
Yeah, right. I don't know much more than you do, but it is pretty funny. Like I think all software engineers are now getting like their parents or their cousin or their uncle, like, aren't you afraid of AI taking your job? And I'm like, aren't you afraid of AI taking your job? Like that's
Yeah.
always the thing. Not to like, I don't want to down anybody or make jokes, honestly, about people losing their job. That's actually a pretty morbid or dark thing. But I do think that like it is interesting that people that like are often like doing things like manual labor or spreadsheets or like office stuff where they're like writing emails, like highly automatable things. And I'm like, I'm not super concerned about software engineers being like fully automated away. And if we are, then I think that we'll have a much larger problem on our hands to deal with. I think lawyers and doctors and other professions could also find that happening. But I mean, we don't know the future. Like that's the thing. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know that this is particularly a fun time to code. Like I use AI tools all day at work. What's your AI tool usage like at your job?
So it's funny because I was kind of unsure when he
hmm
first asked me. He's like, "How much do you use AI?" And I was like, "Is this a trick question? Does
Yeah,
he want
right.
to know if I know anything?" And I told him that I use it, but that I, verify everything. You don't just copy paste.
Of course.
And then after the first week or two, he started telling me, use Cursor to build this thing real quick so we can work with the configuration. Use ChatGPT to figure out what's going wrong with the logs here. Use Gemini because that's the fastest model now. Let's go back and forth between these two models and see which one gives the right answer.
Yeah.
And so I find that I'm using AI a lot in my work. And I really have, I'm very convinced that companies that restrict AI usage out of just the fact that they feel like their employers might not know what they're doing, there's a balance to it. But I think you're severely limiting the amount of growth and productivity, because that's the whole reason why AI exists, is to increase our productivity, to make things that are very monotonous, very quick and easy to take care of now. Like, I'm just trying to build an example application that I can deploy on my cloud platform. I just tell ChatGPT, make me a really simple app that just does something real simple. And it does it like that. And I can just start focusing on the next thing. I don't have to worry because it's not going to production. It's not going to be crucial taking people's credit card info and stuff. So I'm like, just build this thing. I just want it to say something when I deploy it, and it does it. And I love using it because I actually just got the Cursor subscription because I'm like, I see I'm using this thing enough. I might as well just get into it now. But it's really cool to be using it on a daily basis. And I'll just say that out of everyone I know, it seems like nobody knows what AI does except for the people that I've talked to that are software engineers. And I think it's just because people are too intimidated. They think it's so abstract. But when you start like looking into it, I know you've done a couple episodes on it. It's really interesting to see how it breaks it down and how things are vectorized and stored and referred to. And I think more people should know what it does and how to use it properly, because I think no matter what profession you're in, I mean, I told my parents, I'm like, if you're stuck, my dad was trying to figure out how to do something on his computer and he's a computer wizard. I'm like, dude, just ask like Copilot. It's built into your computer.
Yeah, seriously.
And it's like, it could tell you that quick. If it's like, where do I find this in my settings? Something as simple as that. But I just think no matter what profession you're in, you can find a use for AI just in daily life.
Yeah, it's wild to me that like I read it somewhere like around half of Americans aren't using AI, and I'm like, oof, that's not good, because I see a big digital divide going on, right? And like I'm using these tools at work. In fact, the interview I did for this company, I was like, oh, should I turn Cursor off or should I use VS Code? And the guy's like, no, go ahead and use Cursor. I'm like, oh, this is different. And that was a very different interview than I've ever done. And now, in fact, our interviews are almost penalizing people for not using AI tools. And I thought, this is such a interesting time to start coding and like how everything is changing all at once. Very cool to hear. Before I let you get out of here, I want to get your take on a few things, a couple of hot takes from you. What is some overrated advice you've heard about LinkedIn?
Overrated advice.
Yeah, overrated advice about LinkedIn.
I've heard so many people talking about building up that GitHub. What is it called? The
GitHub portfolio, your GitHub profile.
Yeah, the green squares. I don't know what the term is.
Your commit history. Yeah, your activity, whatever.
They say
those green
you gotta
dots.
be committing daily, even if it's like nothing. Because if you put that on your resume, people see that you're coding every single day. It makes you look more committed. And I'm like, mine is almost completely empty because I'll start one project and work on that project for a month or whatever. And so it's black the rest of the time. And I'm like, I don't see the value in that because it doesn't say at all about the quality of work you're doing.
Oh, that's a good point. Like I might push back on that one, but like I feel you. Like it's also kind of silly. Like at the end of the day, it's your personal work. Like I've never understood this whole thing. Like you have to have like what? Like why are you looking at my personal work? What does that matter? And also, you have a good point too. Honestly, now that you said it, I'm like, yeah. What if it sucks? What if you just put terrible stuff every single day?
Yeah, because you could just NPM a new app every day,
every single day,
it to GitHub, and it looks like you're on there every day doing something. So I think there's a balance to it.
I like that point a lot. I'm like not a big fan of portfolio projects, as you probably know. I'm not like the whole idea of like my portfolio project, and then in addition to that, the GitHub, which is kind of like related to that, is going to get me by. What's the best advice you have for people that are like busy parents and have jobs and stuff that want to learn to code, what's something you like wish you had done or that you've figured out that really helped you like maintain your schedule?
So for me, I found that first of all, having a partner that is committed with you, someone that is going to support you, because there's times where I was working on my app and I was debugging something and I was pulling my hair out and my son wakes up and I'm like, please, please go get him. I
Oh
cannot leave the
man.
computer right now.
Right.
And so to have that support system is a game changer if you have a kid. But also just finding those windows of opportunity where you have the time, even if it's an hour, even if it's 30 minutes, it's still enough time to make some progress and to, get the code going in your head. Because there's times where I had to go to work and I'm with my son, but I got 30 minutes. And so I get myself in there and I might maybe write another line or two and I'm figuring something, but then I'm like driving to work and I'm thinking about it and it's in my head. And so I'm figuring things out. I'm listening to the podcast and then on my way home, I'm immediately thinking about it so that the next morning when I get up, I wake up before my son's up and I get started right on it. And I think you just got to find those windows and take advantage of them. You've talked about it a lot, how you can get kind of an analysis paralysis of like, okay, when I get this window, what should I do? But you need to have like that plan. Like, okay, I'm going to keep this window open on my computer. So every time I see my computer, that window is open for me to start working,
Dude, man, you give me so many flashbacks. Like I still do that sometimes. Sometimes I have to like force myself like, okay, if I go to work, I'm like, I have to leave because I have to get back to my family. Right. But then on the train or whatever, I'll be thinking about the problem. And oftentimes I'll solve it in my head or I'll leave myself a voice note and then I'll get home and I can be like, okay, cool. Like I needed a break. I needed to rest my brain just like I tell people to do. I got to take my own advice. And then I'll get home and actually solve the thing or wake up in the morning before my kids wake up and yell at me to cook pancakes, or whatever. And then boom, I have the answer. Man, that's the reason I think why you've made it, because you're doing a lot of the things that I think people either refuse to do or they know they should do and aren't doing. But this is a pattern. Like I've used this pattern. You are Anne, who I just spoke to, who's also going to be on the show, who's a Parsity grad who just got hired. She's doing these same things. There's a pattern here. I think that it's a trail of breadcrumbs that hopefully other people can hear and then follow, because you're a busy young father with a job, wife, a whole nine, and you still had to like make this time to do it, which I think is important to know.
I'll add one more thing to that too. Yeah. I've posted about this a lot because I'm really set on this mentality to have, but you've got to have that grit and that determination that when you get stuck on a bug or when you get rejected from an interview or you don't get the job or things like that, that you just keep going at it. I've had times because it took me longer to complete Parsity than it could have if I dedicated more time to it. But I also looked at it as like, this is a marathon, not a sprint. And I just need to get to the finish line. I'm not trying to get there as fast as I can. And if I trip once, that's not the end of it, because you're not going to survive in the job market if you get discouraged from one little issue. You have to be able to keep going at it day after day, or even on the same day. If you hit something and you just got to take a walk and get away from it for a second and come back. I've had to force myself to just go eat lunch or something because I like cannot understand what's going wrong here. And I come back and it clicks. Like literally right before we recorded this, I spent most of the day trying to figure something out. And I went and took lunch. I came back and I figured it out right away. Yep. And sometimes you just got to be willing to get out of the chair and get back in the chair day after day. And that is what will separate you from the rest of people, because as long as you keep doing the thing, you'll eventually get better and better at it. And you'll eventually figure those things out. And over the long period of time, that will mold you into a more hireable engineer and eventually a senior engineer or wherever you want to go.
That's you hit the nail on the head. Like there's many, you can learn technology, you can learn coding languages. It's much more difficult to learn that kind of mindset and that kind of habit, to develop that kind of mindset. Like, yes, this is going to suck. And that's the other thing I noticed from just talking to you today. Like you have the correct expectations in many ways. Like you have expectations that were like aligned more with reality, which is why you would say, hey, I was so surprised I got hired because I expected to get 99 no's. and that's not a bad mentality to have, because then you're like, okay, I know I'm going to fail. I know that's just part of the game here. Like I'm going to fail. I'm going to get hit. I'm going to get knocked down, and then I'm going to get back up. But you're right. If you come into this with the wrong expectations, it can feel really and you can feel deflated really, really quickly. Yeah. Where can people find you online, man?
So my plan is to continue posting on LinkedIn. I haven't recently, but I will continue to share on there. I believe my LinkedIn handle is Jacob Cox. If it's wrong, you can put
It'll
it
be
in
in the show
or
notes.
something.
I'll put it in the show notes.
I am more than happy to have a conversation with anyone that reaches out. If you have any questions, I'm always here to talk. But yeah, for the most part, LinkedIn is where I'm at. I actually, one thing that I committed to myself before I started the boot camp was to completely get rid of all social media, at least temporarily until I got my first job.
That's right.
I still haven't got back on it yet. And we'll see if I do. But I've found that's another thing is if you cut out those kinds of things, if you can do it, you will find so much extra time on your hands. You spend an extra hour at night going on TikTok before you go to sleep. And I was like, dude, if I cut this out, I'm going to get like 2 or 3 hours a day back. It was a no brainer to me. So I'm only on LinkedIn at the moment.
I love it, dude. Thanks so much, man. It's been really great speaking with you. You're a wonderful dude, fantastic person, outside of parts, just a great human being. So I think if you are listening to this and you want to connect with Jacob, you absolutely should. I think he has a lot of wisdom and a very interesting story. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate it.
That'll do it for today's episode of the Develop Yourself podcast. If you're serious about switching careers and becoming a software developer and building complex software and want to work directly with me and my team, go to Parsity.io. And if you want more information, feel free to schedule a chat by just clicking the link in the show notes. See you next week.